Alright, this is going to be part 2 to the first video that I made. Just kind of a little response to the whole Peggy Hubbard video thing that came out, because I really feel like the representation of young black African Americans, it wasn't all that great from her perspective. On the first one, I touched on a couple of topics. On this one, I'll be doing pretty much the same. So one thing that I think she really needs to get her mind wrapped around, because and a lot of people, and it's kind of hard to see if you didn't grow up in it. And then wonder, like, why are these people so violent? Well, how is it these people have such an ability to destroy stuff or hurt people or commit crimes or violent acts, whatever? Well, first things first, and the most obvious one, and anybody will be able to tell you, is poverty creates crime. I don't care what ethnicity you are. Poverty creates crime. If you give somebody a sufficient amount of experiences that would reinforce the belief that common sense is not going to put food on the table, eventually they will resort to violence, which is kind of what happens, especially when it comes down to like the economy and all the rest of that, how it rains down on you. I mean, think about it as a black man growing up, you know, especially in a underprivileged place like a project or something of that nature. When you grow up in environments like that, you often don't come across millionaires. You know, you're not going outside every day and seeing the neighborhood stock investor. You know, you're not going to play basketball with a CEO of a company. You're just not going to do it. The people who you are going to run into, just due to sheer opportunity, because of the situation of that particular region and regions like it, what you are going to run into is the drug dealers. The people you are going to run into is probably the same people that shoot people. You know, when I grew up, it was the exact same situation. You know, it's kind of like you grow up with these drug dealers and everything else. And a lot of people wonder, like, why don't people snitch on them? Well, here's the thing. When the police show up, they curse me out, they curse them out. Somebody get beat up, somebody get taken to jail. But I could sit down and conversate with the drug dealer. You get what I'm saying? I know that was like kind of off the topic. It was a little bit off the wall, but I just felt like that was the right thing to say at the moment. Because, I mean, think about it. When it comes down to these same dudes that's doing dirt in your hood, you can literally sit down and talk to them. You know, like, you can probably know them well enough to consider them a friend, or maybe y'all gonna go out and chill somewhere, y'all meet up at parties or whatever. That's how things work out like that. But it is outlandish to think of doing the same thing with a policeman. You know, and this is another key area where the Black Lives Matter movement has to prevail. Because when you compare black people to white people, especially in terms of, or better yet, minorities as a whole. Now, black people, we kind of get the brunt of it, but minorities as a whole, when you think about relations between the two, on one side is great, on the other side it's terrible. I was raised seeing police chase people down, beat the hell out of them, taser them, throw you on a hot car, curse you out, grab you in places where you don't like to be touched, pretty much dare you to do something so they can overexert their power over you, you know, so they can overuse the power that the state then gave them that was supposed to only be used in the case of a violent crime. So in essence, they use that same power to create a conflict. Now, when you compare that to the neighborhood drug dealer who just deals drugs and is for every other purpose on the average everyday dude, it's different. You know, you feel like you can relate to him more, and you feel like you can relate to the police less. You know, and that same idea reinforces itself over and over and over throughout life. So why exactly is it so hard for us to just get along? Better said, why is it so easy for us to go to conflict? Because the only people we can trust when we're growing up happen to be the worst people. Like that's what we have flooded in our communities. People doing the best they can to survive. And this is where another completely wrong assumption of Miss Peggy's came into play. One other thing she said in an interview with Don Lemon is that white privilege doesn't exist. Oh, because I have a neighbor and she's broke and she can't afford food and a new car and da-da-da-da-da, and she's white, so white privilege can't exist. So think about it this way, since white privilege doesn't exist. Just try to wrap your mind around this concept. John Crawford goes to Walmart, plays with a BB gun. Squads of police show up, instantly execute him. Dylan Roof kills 9 people. Police show up, escort him out like he's a human being, and even go as far as buying him fast food after he killed 9 people with an assault rifle. Now, just to kind of piggyback off of your past point about the little girl, they had futures. Some of them, I wouldn't say they were adolescents, but they definitely, they probably watched after them. Pretty sure some of them had kids. Pretty sure some of them was in school. I'm pretty sure some of them had things that they could have did that was great. Maybe a future pastor, maybe they could have been a future president or something like that, Secretary of Defense, whatever. Those promises were also destroyed. And the promises that they gave to their children to be parents, those were destroyed as well. But then Dylan was pretty much treated like a person. And I don't want to say that like it's a problem, because that's the way things should be. It's just outrageous when you have parallels like that. You have one person that killed 9 people on behalf of a racist rhetoric. And then you have another person who played with a BB gun on behalf of the fact that it was available. One of those people got shot to death with no mercy. The other one got treated like a human being. But in your world, white privilege doesn't exist. It's pretty much a known fact after I believe it was a university study, that even something as simple as a black sounding name, when you try to apply for a job, lessens your chances of being hired. At certain points, a black sounding name or a black sounding accent can actually affect the housing that you can be available for, whether or not that person is going to say, yes, we have rooms, or no, we don't. In the same scenarios, there was a study done where police typically mentally exaggerated the age of black people. They would typically think, I think it was somewhere between 2 to 3 years older than what that person actually was, which is why when they shot Tamir Rice, who was 12, one of the defenses is, oh, we thought he was grown, despite the fact that he was obviously 12. Like, I don't think anybody could look at him and think that that's a grown man. But these are the type of preconceptions that they're going to have at the sight of us. Also, let me see, it's a plethora of things. If me and a Caucasian person both commit the same crime and go before the same judge, I am more likely to get a higher sentence, despite the fact that we did the exact same thing. Now, these are the type of things that aren't counted. And I don't want to say it in a spirit to where it's like, oh, well, it's their fault, it's white people's fault. Because it's not all of their fault. It's the remnants of an old generation that needs to die out. But here's the thing. All of those play a role in your life when you're a young black male. So let's go back to the initial dispute that you were having with the black community. We're constantly killing each other. Why are we doing this? Why don't we care about each other's lives like we would like the police to do when it comes down to the Black Lives Matter movement? Well, here's the thing. It's not that we don't, but we're conditioned to subliminally take that thought out of our mind. Just like I said, when it comes down to our societies, our schools are typically going to be the worst. They'll be defunding our public schools just to fund privatized prisons or just regular prisons, or however it is they do that. So your school isn't all that great. You go to school, you learn the bare basics to pass a test, so everybody can hit their quotas and the school can get money, whatever little bit the state decides to hand to it. You move up through the ranks in school, then of course by then you're gonna have to have a job so you can make money. Once again, just from having a black sounding name, it hurts your chances of getting a well-paid job or a job at all to begin with. People are more reluctant to hire you if you sound like an African American. And this is before considering anything about your character as a person, your skills, what you can offer to the workforce. This is something that's already represented as a negative within your profile or within your metaphoric resume per se. So you think about that. So my education isn't all that great. It's hard for me to get a job. Me and my teachers don't see eye to eye because they're underpaid, so they're only going to give me worksheets and make sure they remind me that they don't care whether or not I pass or fail. I got to deal with the police constantly harassing me over the smallest things, over and over and over again. I can't get an adequate paying job, or can I? Because my partner that had been serving the block for a couple of years, he don't want for nothing. He get everything that he wants. You know, and everything else just comes along with the job. Yeah, it might be dangerous, but I'm gonna die one day anyway. I done lost everything anyway. I can't fix what's been broken. I guess it's just what I'm supposed to do. They get to take away all my rights, put me in jail for however long they want over whatever petty charge they choose, beat up on me if they feel like it, tell me off if they feel like it, make sure I stay unemployed for as long as possible and overcharged by the court system for as long as possible. So at this point, your back is against the wall. You still want to make a living, but everything seems like it's terrible. But there's one speck of light. There's one guy who seems to be happy because he can use the drug economy to fund everything that he wants. Now, is that the proper way to go about, you know, assessing what you want to do in your future? No. But this is the type of thing that you're faced with as a minority, and definitely as an African American male. These are the types of images that's drilled into our head with the TVs that we watch and everything else. It has a really big impact on our lifespan and a really, really big impact on what we choose to do in terms of facilitating what we would like to have in our lives. You know, like one of the biggest problems with the way you presented your point, oh, well, we need to stop these niggas from killing each other, and if they go to jail, then Afro and da-da-da-da-da, and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that sounds cute. You know, I'm pretty sure it felt great to vent that way. But when you think about it all together, what does that solve? Like, okay, so you've noticed there is a problem, but what solution have you brought forward in terms of fixing that problem, other than just saying you niggas is crazy, which everybody knows by now? You know, if anything, the smartest thing to propose is, one, let's stop having police kill us and start to become role models again. I remember back when, back in the elementary school days when we played cops and robbers, everybody wanted to be the cop. But if you was to have that same game played nowadays, I'm pretty sure it would be the exact opposite. Most of the people that I grew up with would feel far more comfortable being the criminal than being the cop. Which is sad, because they no longer represent anything good to us. The value of a police officer drops every time you have one of those experiences with them, to where your life isn't really taken as equal. But here's the thing, if we can reverse that, on one end, which is a really good end, on one end, if you reverse that, police can possibly become a positive pillar of life for people. who can look back and say, well, man, that dude doing right and making money. Maybe I can do that. You know, maybe I can save people. And this doesn't go without saying that, you know, there were cops in my life that steered me in the right direction, that did certain things for me and cut certain corners for me, that made it possible for me to be where I am today. Now, if you had a full command force of these people, you can be changing lives by the day. You can be stopping conflicts by the day. Just off the simple fact that, man, officer such and such showed up. I remember he got me out of jail. I ain't gonna act up with him. I'm gonna just go ahead on about my business. You know, that's the difference in terms of an impact. And also, they can stop killing us and start saving us. Because once you have those police back into a connotation of positivity, people are more likely to work with them now. They're more likely to call because they don't think you're going to show up and shoot them. You know, they're more likely to cooperate with you when you ask questions because they don't think they'll be next to be incarcerated. You know, they're less reluctant when you just up and show up, even in the middle of a crime, because they don't have to think to themselves, man, I might be shot for this ticket. Or I might be tased because I didn't signal, or something of that nature. I might get a ticket because I eyeballed a police officer too hard, which it actually happened. That's a true story. But in the grips of all of that, it changes a lot. It changes a whole lot. So don't get me wrong. Yes, we do have work to do on our own in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement. But at the same time, this has got to be something that's community-wide, not just for black people. Because even if we do try to resolve it just with ourselves, I mean, we've tried that before. And in a lot of situations, you realize the second we get close to somebody that can possibly lead us to something better, white people kill them. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, everybody who lived in Black Wall Street. Imagine if they would have continued on. You know, imagine if there was a Black Lives Matter movement back then that was so influential, the people who raided and burned everything down just decided not to do it. You know, how much would that have saved? How many role models would that have made for the community? You know, so it's one thing to say, okay, well, y'all are criminals. If you want to throw away your life, that's on you, blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? One of these days, that's going to be the person that's going to have to fix your motorcycle. That's going to have to do your taxes. That's going to be the doctor that has to work on you when you're old, senile, and sick. You know, this is the future. You might feel like you're on your high horse because you're doing well, but guess what? One day you will die, just like everybody else, and somebody will have to replace you in society. If you decide to just start throwing people away, you're not helping, because the world isn't going to become better. That's untapped potential. You might end up throwing away the next Bill Gates, or the next Barack Obama, or the next Bill Clinton, or the next whatever. You know, it don't even have to be just black people. Any race that decides to just discard the people who aren't doing excellent, I feel like they aren't, you know, that's not a fit leader to follow, which is why our prison system sucks. It's a miserable failure. And I don't think it will ever help anybody as much as it's led on to help. But, I mean, yeah, in the midst of it all, it's pivotal that Black Lives Matter movement continues on, even through the stupidity of some people who misinterpret its meaning. Because I'm pretty sure it was the same thing with Martin Luther King. There was some people who probably didn't really get what he was saying, but they were there, you know, and the support at least shows for something. But, you know, just to wrap it up, that's just a couple of topics I wanted to put out to maybe provoke some thought in somebody like yourself and people who follow you. So maybe one day y'all can understand that, yeah, that it's sad, it's messed up, it's tragic when stuff happens like the 9-year-old girl being shot to death, but it's not going to fix it by just throwing people under the bus and saying, oh well, I felt the word so I spoke it. Yeah, that's your opinion, that's fantastic. But how about speaking an opinion that actually helps? You know, I think that'd be a good next step. Thank you. Peace.